Welcome back to another episode of the Hardcore Casual with your boy, Bass the Kid. As always, please like and subscribe, share with a friend, a colleague, a relative, an associate, an enemy, any and all in between. It's appreciated. Now, there's a few things to talk about, and yeah, I haven't done a video like this in a little while. So, without further ado, let's get into it. So I'm sure most of you have seen by now that Joseph Parker, our resident Joseph Parker, has gone back to his lockdown roots, made himself a nice little video saying that basically he wants to get it back against Dillian Whyte. He wants to run it back. Also, I guess it means that he wants him back in the sport as well. There are kind of a couple mixed signals in there, but I'm sure you guys have seen the video. Pretty funny, just like all of the other videos he was doing in lockdown. He was one of the few boxers that really utilized that time creatively and got his name out there in a sort of a big way. And since then it's parlayed into numerous big fights. Most won, obviously, one lost, but if anyone has had like a big reinvention of themselves within the last sort of 4 or 5 years, especially since losing his title back in 2018, it's Joseph Parker. And if anyone is deserving of a title shot after that big run of form, it's definitely him as well. So regardless of what happens with Usyk and Fury and Joshua and Hrgovic and Dubois, and maybe the Zhang Zhilei rematch, if that does in fact take place, yeah, he definitely deserves to get another shot at that title, or at some of those titles, if not one. But yeah, if you guys seen it, it's very creative, and like I said, I wouldn't expect anything else from Joseph Parker at this point in time, so big ups. So Malik Scott came out the other day and was essentially saying something along the lines that Deontay Wilder is probably like the most violent fighter out there, or something along those lines. He's really sort of violent and aggressive, but he's enjoyed himself on the ayahuasca a bit too much, and it's made him consider like the softer things in life, and it's sort of, you know, maybe taken some of that edge off of him. Now, that could be the case, or it could just be the case that when it came to fighting someone that was actually a competent heavyweight, he had no answers. I'll leave that to you guys to decide personally. What I do know is, okay, I have heard that ayahuasca can make you change your perspective on certain things, make some things become harder, make other things become softer, and it just, yeah, it can loosen your stance. But ultimately, we're talking about a journey the guy took back in 2022, maybe 2021. I think the last fight he had with Tyson Fury was 2021, right? So okay, you've gone from there, and then you've done the ayahuasca journey. Well, that same 2022, you've found the killer instinct to be able to knock out Robert Helenius quite brutally in a round. So why did you no longer have the killer instinct after that? It's not like you took the ayahuasca after that, you took it before, and everything else was the same. So again, I feel like this just comes down to, now you get in there with someone that's a legit top 10 heavyweight, you struggle. You do the same thing that you were doing, you know, in your preliminary bouts with the likes of Harold Sconiers and those type of people. Like, you struggle. You doing the same thing you was doing with an overweight, out of shape Tyson Fury, you struggle. The same thing that you did with a very past it, but you know, a legit top 10 at the time, Luis Ortiz, you struggled. Berman Stavern, the first time, you struggled. Good boxing, you exhibited some very good boxing skills in that fight, but still struggle. So anytime there's another legit top 10 opponent in the ring, you struggle or you lose. I guess that's just it right about now. So yeah, I don't really think the ayahuasca had much to do with it. Clearly that's it's got to be Malik Scott just trying to cover for him again. But proof's in the pudding, and unfortunately the pudding is undeniable at this point in time. So like I said, you guys let me know what you kind of think with regards to that situation. Now, while I was at the it was the press conference for Fraser Clark and Fabio Wardley last week, I ended up doing an interview with a new boxer, super featherweight actually, 130 pounds, 1-0 prospect from the same gym as Fabio Wardley over there in Ipswich. So I felt it was only right that I sort of put it into one of my vids. Initially I was going to do its own, little base talks, but I figured because she's unknown, it may not get the same traction as if I put it into just a standard video. So what I've decided to do is I'm just putting it in here so you guys can kind of see it for yourself, get to know the name, and I will follow up with her later on in the year, and hopefully she would have had some good bouts, some good action, maybe got her name out a little bit more, so make the follow-up a bit more pleasant. But until then, the name's Eilish Tierney, 130 pound prospect. Take a look, let me know what you think. This is Base the Kid, the hardcore casual, and I'm delighted to be joined by new super featherweight prospect Eilish Tierney. Trained with Fabio Wardley in the same gym. So tell the people about yourself. How are you, first of all?
Yeah, I'm all good, thank you. How are you? You all good?
I'm very well. Look, tell us about you. I've not seen your pro debut. I have seen the victory, but I do want to know a bit more about you, sort of what you've been doing, how you grew up in the sport. Let us know a bit about yourself.
I'm still a bit of a baby boxer. I only started like 3 years ago. Got into the white collar. I initially got into the boxing through weight loss. So I was at 15 stone before lockdown. So cutting weight for fights is easy for me now. But obviously followed in Fabio's footsteps, went down the white collar route, done a few amateur bouts, and now I'm here as a professional boxer. So it's mad.
So when you started, and obviously you said it was for weight loss purposes, but you obviously fell in love with it. What was it about boxing, whether it was the white collar, whether it was the amateur circuit, what was it about it that sort of drew you to the sport?
It was the constant need to do better, to always better myself. Like one shit sparring, you're like, no, that's not happening again. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And it's just the constant learning and progression and being around people like Fabio and all his trainers, just having you're only as good as the people around you, and I've got one of the best heavyweights in the world arguably around me, so the sky's the limit for me, especially with Fabio and the team. So it's crazy at the moment.
So in terms of, I guess, your next bout, what are you sort of looking? I heard that you've got a bout coming up in a couple of weeks, right? So I guess, how would people describe your style? Let us know sort of how you would best describe yourself.
I'm aggressive from the get-go. I establish the centre quite quickly. I rely on my head movement. But then on the back foot, I've had to do it all in the amateur and white collar. Especially in white collar, you don't know what's going to turn up. But amateur, obviously, you've got a bit more of the discipline, the pedigree, and I've done it all. So when I'm in that ring, especially with the girl out of my opponent for my pro debut, I'd never boxed anyone like her. She was just very different and unorthodox, and I figured it out very quickly. Establish your jab, land those shots, get out of there, land a few more, and I can figure people out quite quickly. I've watched Fabio do it 1,000 times. Just land those big punches, and that's what I'm doing in the female game. So would you call yourself, I mean, look, a lot of people, a lot of the women don't historically have big punches. They're not huge knockout artists, but there are some that get those stoppages. Would you think that is your style, that goes for that KO, or are you more, you just want to make sure that you win those rounds and dominate? At the minute, I just want to win those rounds, get my name out there a bit more. But if the knockout's going to happen, it will happen. I'm not going to stop myself from it. I wobbled my opponent, but it was in the 4th round. I was like, nah, let's just get through it. It's my debut. I have no idea what's going on. Let's just get through it. But with my team, I can hit hard, I can bang, and that's ultimately what we're after. But right now, I want the experience, I want the rounds, and the knockout will come when it happens.
How many fights are you hoping to get in for 2024?
3 or 4. I want to get out as many as I can, and by the end of this year, beginning of next, I'm looking for titles. I want to be on this stage. This is why I'm here, to experience it, because one day this is going to be mine and it's going to be mad.
Are you currently in any talks with any promoters, small halls or the bigger ones at the present?
Not currently. I'm still very unknown. I don't have that pedigree amateur background, but my name's going to get out there, constantly wearing it. Like, people are going to remember the name Eilish Tierney, so one day.
Well, look, I'm certainly going to remember it, but when it comes to this year, I never believe in talking about the next opponent, whatever. It's good that you've got an idea for 3-4 fights, but what I do want to ask you, by the end of 2024, what do you want to be able to look back on the year and say to yourself?
That I've developed. I'm not like stagnant. Like, I've got better and better and better in every fight. And you're only as better as your last performance. So my next goal is the next girl that stood in front of me. Like, by the end of the year, I just want to look back and say I've done it. And like, just what we're going to do next. Like, because you're only as great as if people remember you. Like, it's all well and great just me speaking here, but if no one remembers my name in 3-4 months, like, there's no point. So,
well, what I'm going to do, I'm going to make a commitment to make sure I catch up with you at the end of this year, and we're going to find out if that was actually what came to fruition. But listen, Eilish, thank you very much for your time. I'll hopefully be trying to find the next fight, but I'll be keeping an eye on you on the socials. But thank you for coming on the channel.
No, I'll hold you to that, and thank you for having me on and interviewing me and everything. I really appreciate it.
Always, take care.
Yeah, nice one. Thank you.
So after the war that took place last week between Sebastian Fundora and Tim Tszyu, the Nevada State Commission have ruled that Sebastian Fundora is actually now not allowed. He's suspended from all competition. I shouldn't say not allowed. He's suspended from all competition until, I believe it's the 27th of September. So basically, the end of September is when, I think that means he can't spar or anything until then, which means he can't get ready for a fight until then, which chances are then means he can't get back in the ring until mid to late November, early December at the earliest. That in itself throws into caution and throws in a spanner in the works of the deal that's supposed to be reached between himself and Terence Crawford, because the agreement was whoever won the fight had to face him no later than 180 days after that bout took place. So 180 days is what, 6 months? Was it 180 or was it 120? It might have, it was one of the two. So either way, it had to take place within 6 months. Now we are March, so theoretically, if he's suspended until the end of September, that kind of means that they missed that window. So would the WBO then grant an extension because he has this medical certificate from the Nevada State Athletic Commission, or would he get stripped of that belt, and then you get Terence Crawford having to face the next available opposition, which I believe is Josh Kelly, and then after Josh Kelly is Erickson Lubin. Now obviously, him being the PBC guy, if they wanted to try and keep that belt in-house on the PBC, maybe you offer Josh Kelly some step-aside money, you get Erickson Lubin to take the fight, and then you get a chance to sort of hold that belt over there. But I'm assuming Josh Kelly, Wasserman, Channel 5, they probably wouldn't air it, but I could see a scenario where purse bids would take place and it will go to the highest bidder. Now, would Terence Crawford fight a Josh Kelly or someone else for the money that would be on offer there? I'm assuming a purse bid probably wouldn't get above like $6 or $7 million. Would he take that for like a $4 million fight just to win the belt? I don't know. I mean, it's a bit tetchy. But what we do know is that Sebastian Fundora is not going to be able to compete for the next 6 months, probably at a minimum. Then you get the Tim Tszyu. Okay, so you throw into question, well, how does that rematch happen? Whereas Sebastian Fundora's is due to a broken nose, which obviously has impact. There's impacts issues as to why they won't allow him to train. Tim Tszyu's cut as deep as it was has kind of already been sewn up, so that will heal itself within the next month or so. So he'll be able to go back into full training, especially with a head guard on, by the end of April, maybe middle of May. So he could be good for another fight in July or August if he really wanted to. Maybe he takes a fight now. Maybe he does get that rematch with Sebastian Fundora towards the end of the year, but I guarantee it won't be for a WBO belt. It may not even be for a WBC if that belt ends up getting having to be vacated or stripped, which, to be honest, it's the WBC, so that probably won't happen. But you guys know, these things have a way of working how they want it to work. Maybe he sits out for the rest of the year. You get Errol Spence also now sit out, get himself into a training camp just to be able to make the weight to be a fight down there. Possibly he might have a fight now in maybe June or July, like a sharpening the tools, a get back fight at 154, and then go into a fight with Sebastian Fundora at the end of the year, like December time. If they wanted to do it the right way, seeing as Sebastian Fundora can't box until September, the sensible option would be to have Errol Spence and Sergey Boachuk fight each other on an undercard, or maybe like a chief support or a co-main event, maybe the Gervonta Davis card in June or something like that. So that way, if Spence wins, then he becomes the legitimate mandatory for the WBC rather than trying to jump the queue. And then the WBC and PBC have their way out of the mess that they're currently in. That could be an idea, I suppose. But yeah, you guys kind of let me know what you think about that, and what do you think will kind of happen with all of that stuff moving forward? And I guess last but not least, we got official word now that Adam Azim has vacated his EBU super lightweight championship and has foregone the opportunity to face Dalton Smith. I mean, we all knew it was going to happen. I think Eddie Hearn had been saying for several weeks, like a month now, that was the play. And the problem with this one, there's two things. Look, I've said it before, but ultimately, this was always going to be a PR nightmare for Boxer and Ben Shalom, because I said in the interview I did with Ben, do you realize, do you concede there's going to be a huge amount of scrutiny on who you fight next if you don't fight Dalton Smith for all of those belts on the line? And it could also mean that you're not prepared to take the 50-50 or the hard fights. And he said no, he agreed that would be a case. There will be huge eyes and scrutiny on who he's got to fight next. Now, everyone knows they did on the show on the weekend a fight that was close to being signed in advanced talks and advanced stages between Harlem Eubank and Chris Eubank Sr., and then Barry McGuigan and Adam Azim on the other side. First thing I said is, how the hell do you bring two fighters into the ring for a fight that's nearly signed or in advanced talks? That's like the worst stage you can be in, especially when you got someone like Chris Eubank Sr. in there, because he's going to be like, hold on, well, you've announced it now, like, give us I think we deserve more consideration. We want to choose who's on the undercard. We want to choose what other broadcasters or what sponsors we can have with this show. There's all sorts of things that he can now pull, because you've made it very clear that this was your intention. And if you don't do that fight, then you look even more stupid for not having the other fight and then trying to fling this one together. But then there's all of this talk about, well, Adam Azim, he's only 21, he's a baby. I mean, first of all, he's 22. So, like, we can't keep shaving years off of him. It's the same as when they said, Adam Azim's 21 and Dalton Smith's 28. It was like, well, no, it's 22 and 27. There's 5 years between them, not 7. It's not that drastic of a step. But then you look at it and you say to yourself, well, all right, you're saying that, well, he's older guy, like, clearly he needs this more, and in a few fights, like, he's going to be past Dalton Smith anyway. But he's the young one. Obviously, of course, you'd want to catch him young. But then you put him in there against a 30-year-old who's had more fights than Dalton Smith has. So, but then you look at Dalton Smith and you say, well, okay, 16-0 with 12 KOs versus Harlem Eubank, who's 19-0 with 8 KOs. Is that the reason? So is it not necessarily the wins that you have an issue with, or you're concerned about? It's the KO percentage. One's got 75% and the other one is probably about 46, give or take. I haven't even done the proper maths in my head, but is that what we're looking at here? Is it the lack of legit punching power, or the big punching power that you're trying to avoid? Is that how this ends up, being the fight to take place? And don't get me wrong, I think Adam Azim's a good talent. I think he can go far. There's some things he's got to work on. Like, I've seen some very big deficiencies in his game, but again, as I said, he's 22. There's supposed to be deficiencies there. He's not going to be the finished article for at least a few years. He's had some very lackluster performances as of late. As his level have stepped up, his performance levels and his performances in general have left a little bit to be desired. But again, that's what happens when you're building and you're applying your trade. Now, quite frankly, I would have had no issues if they had said, look, he's a future superstar and, we're going to guide him the right way to, sort of to the world titles. Cool, everyone will let you do what you're doing, but all this whole we're gonna fast track him, like he's an exceptional talent, he's ready for the world, like he's ready to take on like the top guys now, and then you get him in a European position, bypassing the British scene altogether, but you go for the weakest possible opposition you can for European title, defend it against a guy who, while is a competent boxer, is injury prone as hell, as we've seen for the last several years, and as we saw in his last fight, a guy also with not much power. Again, that's something I'm very much looking at all of his opponents at this point in time. And then so you go through all of that, but then you say, well, he's not ready for the domestic fight for the British and the Commonwealth and the European in this big unification. So you vacate that for another British fight for a guy with less punching power who's older. But is it because Chris Eubank Sr. has said that he wants him to move up to welterweight? So is it you're thinking, oh well, if he's struggling to make super lightweight, maybe do we get him now? If he's struggling, then this is the best time for us to build a name off of him. Is that what it is? The whole thing just doesn't really make sense. It's like fast tracking someone to titles and then not knowing what to do when they're there doesn't really make much sense, unless the whole plan was, all right, we just say he's became one of the youngest European champions. If he just had the belt and then vacated it the following day, say, okay, he's done that now we're gonna do what we want to do, and then we'll come back for belt collections like in a year's time or something. If you would have done that, okay, cool, then at least then we say there's a strong idea. But right now, because no one's talking, there's narratives that get brought up, just because Eddie Hearn obviously is the better mouthpiece of his promotion than Ben Shalom is. Unfortunately, that narrative now gets out there that your team is afraid, your team is scared, your team don't want it, and your team only wants to do cross promotions when you have control of it. So it has to be on Sky in order for you to want to run it, which is unfortunately, that also means that you don't really have much faith in your stars, because if you did, you'd let them go cross platform, you'd let them go to another platform, win a belt on a big platform, and then bring it back to you. I mean, I would. If Eddie Hearn's done it numerous times, he let Alicia Baumgardner go over to Sky Sports and Top Rank and ESPN and Boxer to go and win two belts off of Michaela Mayer. He let Dalton Smith go over to Sky Sports for the British title when they lost the purse bid. Cool. I mean, at the end of the day, if you trust your people to do what they need to do, Ray Ford, he let Ray Ford go over to Top Rank when they lost the purse bid for the for that WBA title. You gotta be willing to let your people cross the street if you really believe in them that highly. Or don't push them as quickly. It's one or the other. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on that one. You guys let me know what you think ultimately. Is it a bad look? Is the Harlem Eubank fight a decent replacement? Is it a worse fight? Is there any interest in it at all? Because I don't think anyone was asking for it. And that kind of reminds me a little bit of like PBC tactics. They give you a fight that you didn't ask for and then will make you like want to pay pay-per-view for it, and it's like, well, no, because we didn't ask for this. But then they won't give you the fight you want until like 3-4 years down the line. Now obviously we got Clark and Wardley, which did good numbers. Looked like he did 1.7 million on the viewing figures, so that's good. But you know, we didn't get that when we wanted it. Now in that situation, it probably made it a bigger event because of all the backlash and everything that sort of took place with that. This one I don't think will have the same level of intrigue after it's done, if we ever do get it. But yeah, leave your thoughts, let me know what you guys think. But for right now, thank you very much for watching. Catch you on the next video. But that's the Hardcore Casual out.